I mean, there's so many interesting things about polio, and I definitely recommend the book "The Moth and the Iron Lung" by Forrest Moretti, where he goes into this in detail. But um, the polio outbreaks occurred in the summer, and it coincided with this invasive moth species called the gypsy moth, which was decimating the plants and many of the summer crops in New England. And they began using a untested pesticide called lead arsenate. And this was used pretty much indiscriminately. And people, didn't use any protective equipment or even gloves, and they were dousing this all over their summer fruits and vegetable crops, as well as trees. And they had, whole families would go out and douse everything with this stuff. It was like a big activity. And lo and behold, like the same time of year when this activity was going on was when you'd start to see the annual polio cases. And poliomyelitis, by the way, doesn't refer to a virus. It refers to a specific disease of the spinal cord that has a very characteristic lesion when looked at under the microscope. And there's really never been any proof that any virus causes this. And it pretty much went away right after these toxic pesticides stopped being used widely. And at the end of the epidemic of polio, actually, they switched from lead arsenate to DDT. And the clinical characteristics of the illness also changed during that time period, but were still largely neurologic in nature. And then after DDT was taken out of widespread use, basically the cases went back down and almost disappeared. And that was a couple of years before the Sabin vaccine was available.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, basically it was like
And that,
another form of meningitis, right? And they just reclassify these things and call it something new. And then they put it in their books that the doctors then have to, it's a language thing. Then they have to call it that. Go ahead, Bear.
But that opens up the next important part of the germ theory discussion is how do you account for epidemics? I grew up in the polio generation and actually, had a friend with an affected arm. And, what I've learned since, of course, is that when you have a herd exposure to a toxin, as you're suggesting, then you will have a pandemic of internal reactions in people's bodies that are going to try to get rid of this organism or this toxin, I should say. And you can also go deeper into energetic issues that are recognized in, for instance, disciplines of homeopathy, where they bring up ideas of miasm and things that are working on other levels that similarly create conditions where entire races of people, let alone populations of people, will be prone to holographically, let's just say, mirroring conditions in their biology relative to things that are going on other levels. And then that, of course, gets into other things we can talk about, like New German medicine, that took it to a more of an evidence-based understanding of what's going on that level. So.